Welcome to At the Heart of It. I'm Nancy Brown, CEO of the American Heart Association. Welcome to the premiere of my new show, At the Heart of It, where we are sharing stories about remarkable people. We're having intimate conversations about how our guests are finding purpose, unleashing innovation, and maintaining well-being along the way. Discover a softer side you may not have seen before. We are all on this journey, so let's explore and discover together. It is International Women's Day, and we are exploring this year's theme, #Choose to Challenge. What better time than now to start something new? Today, we welcome attorney, TV personality, heart disease survivor, and Dynamo star Jones, who is here to discuss how she has chosen to challenge in her life and in her career. We will also learn a few of Star's secrets for balancing personal and professional success.
A woman who defies easy description, Star Jones. Many of us know Star as one of the original co-hosts of ABC's daytime talk show, The View. But that's just one bullet point on a long resume and just one stop on what's been an incredible professional and personal journey. Star is an attorney, a TV personality, a 3-time book author, TV producer, fashion designer, actress, heart disease survivor, American Heart Association national volunteer, a wife, stepmom, and sister, advocate for women and diversity. A North Carolina native, Star grew up in public housing in New Jersey. She began her legal career as a prosecutor in Brooklyn, New York. Later, she became chief legal analyst on Inside Edition, where she led the coverage of the O.J. Simpson murder case. Not only that, but she was the only reporter to interview Simpson during his civil trial. In the decades since, she's been impossible to pin down, but her commitment to changing the world for the better is unwavering. Star is the co-founder and principal of Instant Impact Group, a consultancy firm that champions diversity and inclusion. She is also the executive editor of Makers Lists, curating change makers for marquee who's who. Change is a constant theme in Star's life and of today's conversation.
Hey, Star, welcome and happy International Women's Day.
Hey, Nancy, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so very much for inviting me.
Oh, I am so thrilled to have you here. You know, when I see that video, I think to myself, my gosh, you are one of my closest friends. And I look at that video and I see a whole side of you that we don't often talk about. And it's because it's a side of you that we haven't experienced together. But we're going to talk about that today.
Oh, that'll be fun. Absolutely. I look at that video and I see how much weight I've lost.
I love it. And there was a day you didn't wear red every day, too. So I learned that about you today.
Yes, indeed. But right now, of course, I've got my red on because this is where my heart is.
I know it is. And you know, I thought we would start out by having a little fun today. I call this segment my Signature 5. So I have a few rapid fire questions. I want to see how quick you are on your feet. Are you ready to play? Star, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely a morning person. I get more done before 9 o'clock in the morning than most people get done all day.
I love it.
From about 5:30 a.m., I can roll.
I love it. Do you prefer multitasking or one thing at a time?
Multitasking. I learned that in law school to sort of see everything on a chart in my brain. So I just plug things in throughout the day.
Best stress relief, the spa or a workout?
No question, a spa. I just actually had a body treatment, so I can tell you it's the spa.
I am jealous. Okay, food, steak, fish, or tofu?
I think tofu is the devil. I don't even understand the person who
You and me
created it.
both. Right.
So I've given up really, really heavy meats. So fish, and my very favorite fish is branzino. A piece of grilled white fish is about as good as it gets.
Ooh, that sounds good. Okay, I'm asking you this question, not that I need to know, but our viewers want to know. Animal preference, dog or cat or something else?
Nancy, come
I
on
know. Come
now.
on,
Give me a
girl.
break. We both are in love with our dogs. Are you
I
kidding?
know.
Mimi is the love of my life. She's my mini me. Her birthday is actually my birthday.
I
So
know.
when I tell you she's my baby, she's my baby.
I know she is, and I'm her auntie, so we do love our dogs.
Yes,
Bonus
we do.
question: wine, red or white?
I'm a white wine drinker, even though red wine is a little bit better for the heart. I like a good New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, and I have discovered that Costco has a really good one for very, very cheap.
Oh, good to know. Thank you for the tip. So, Star, let's now get at the heart of it.
Sure.
Today, March 8th, is International Women's Day, a day we celebrate the achievements of amazing women in all areas: social, economic, political, entertainment, healthcare, cultural, and more. You, my friend, my very dear friend, you are a pioneer and you're a truth teller. You continuously embody the 2021 International Women's Day theme of hashtag choose to challenge. Have you always been that way?
I think so. I've always been sort of the big mouth little girl that didn't know that she, quote, had a place. And I've always figured that I would just stand in the space that God had created for me. My parents named me Starlet. I became Star for short very early on, and I think I kind of grew into the name. Challenging the status quo is a part of my DNA, Nancy.
Yeah. So, is that what made you decide to go to law school?
I decided to go to law school when I was 8 years old. Actually, I remember very distinctly the very moment I came home from school. I was living with my grandparents down in North Carolina, and I came home from school, and my grandmother was watching a soap opera. They called it the stories back then.
Yes, they
And she was
did. Yeah.
watching the stories, and she was watching Another World. And there was this character, Victoria Wyndham played Rachel Corey. I can't believe it's been so many years, and I remember this like it was yesterday. And my grandmother remarked, she said, "Oh, that child needs a lawyer," just like that. And my mom, then and we called her Mama Merle, and my mom Merle said, "Oh, that child needs a lawyer." And I said, "Mama Merle, what's a lawyer?" She said, "Well, those are the folk you can depend on. When you get in trouble, they usually have your back." And I said to her, this woman with a sixth grade education, um, "Mama Merle, I think I'm going to be a lawyer." And she said to me, "If you say you're going to be a lawyer, that's what you're going to be." And that's just really the way it all started. Now, I can tell you, Nancy, quite honestly, she then called my mother, and my mother used it as a hammer for the remainder of my childhood. So every time I would get out of line, she would say, "Excuse me, lawyers don't act like that." And she would use it against me until she got to a point where I would talk back. And she said, "Lawyers don't talk back to their mother." And then she knew I was going to be a lawyer because my response one day was, "Oh, yes, they do, Mom. They talk back to everyone."
I can see that as clear as day. And I love that you've had your purpose identified for your life since you were 8 years old. And it really shows you, as we celebrate the power of women, how powerful your grandmother and your mother were in
Hmm.
helping you stay the course. They tried to, they encouraged you to be everything you could be, not to have you change course, and I love that.
Hmm.
So tell us, Star, about a moment in your life where you, quote, chose to challenge, either personally or professionally, and what happened?
Nancy, actually, I can think back to that. It was a very difficult moment. I remember I had celebrated my big 40th birthday with 40 of my closest girlfriends. We all went to Jamaica
Mm.
for my 40th birthday, and it was just a celebration. 4 or 5 days in Jamaica with your closest friends, and it was the party of life. And it was probably the most successful that I had ever been in my career. And between 40 and 41, I gained 75 pounds.
Wow.
I went from 225 pounds to 300 pounds in 1 year. So it was the most successful year professionally, but for some reason, I personally was not thriving. And I really feel, based on what I know now, that I was in some sort of depression that I could not describe nor could I deal with. And I remember that a friend of mine came to me pretty much right after my 41st birthday. And she took our friendship in her hands for all practical purposes because I'm not the easiest person to approach with something that's sensitive. I kind of push back.
Gee, I hadn't
Oh, yeah.
noticed. Yeah.
I'm sure no one would believe
No
that.
one believes that.
And she came to me and she said, I'm worried.
Mm.
A friend of ours had just passed away from a stroke. And I think most Americans and most people around the world know Luther Vandross died alone in his apartment in New York.
Yeah.
She said, I cannot come into this apartment one day and find you dead on the floor.
Wow.
I'm worried about your weight. You can't breathe. You can't walk in the same way. You're not living your life. And I don't know what happened, Nancy. A light just really just hit me at that moment. And I said, I'm going to take control of my life and of my health.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to my doctors and I said, I'm ready. You tell me what I need to do. To make a very long story shorter, we talked about the fact that I had gotten so out of control. I needed some medical assistance.
Mhm.
And so we decided that I was going to have weight loss surgery. And back all those years ago, this was 2003, it required a number of doctors to talk you through this process because they really wanted to make sure you were going to be successful. And one of the doctors was indeed a psychiatrist that you had to sit down and actually talk about how you got to this point. It's one of the smartest things I've ever did. I chose to challenge what the status quo was. Chose to challenge what people expected of me. I chose to challenge what I expected of myself. And I didn't talk about it because I wasn't ready. It was very difficult to deal with the fact that somebody who was supposed to be the smart one, the one that did everything the right way, the one that was so successful, the one that other people came to for advice, it was very difficult for me to admit that that was fake.
Yeah.
I wasn't the smartest one in the room and that I needed the help. And I was really scared that I wasn't going to be successful. And so my doctors and I, we talked it through and we said, you find your space, you figure it out, you get healthy. And that's what I did. And I have to tell you, it's that choice, Nancy, that over the course of 2 years allowed me to lose 160 pounds.
Wow.
I was 307 on the day that I had weight loss surgery. And over the course of the next 15 years, I've kept off 100 to 100, 140 to 150 pounds.
That is incredible. Start. I know you had help at the beginning, but I spend a lot of time with you and I see how diligent you are about making the right choices. But we all kind of go off the wagon once in a while. What goes through your head? Like, what are you saying to yourself?
Remember, I was a homicide prosecutor in
Right.
the beginning of my career. And I can't tell you the number of autopsy reports that I've seen. I can't tell you the number of homicide scenes I've been to.
Yeah.
I remember reading autopsy reports, and they are very sterile. They're very matter of fact. They give you the facts. And I remember very clearly an autopsy report that said, Negro woman morbidly obese, to describe this
Mm-mm-mm.
woman who had been killed.
Mm-mm.
I swore to myself, no one would ever describe me that way. And I meant that. I
Yeah.
meant that.
Yeah.
And that stays in my head all the time. So I have no question, Nancy. I'm never going back.
Yeah, I love that. And you in so many ways in your life, you have conquered a lot of challenges. And we know that many women have obstacles, especially women of color. What are the main obstacles you see for women who might, quote, choose to challenge?
Well, if we're going to be honest, it's institutional racism and institutional sexism. I mean, let's just be very blunt about it. I think about for years, as we celebrate Women's History Month and International Women's Day, when our country was founded, women and blacks were not a part of the equation,
That's right.
except as commodities, if you think about it. Women did not have the right. to think for themselves, to act for themselves, to even negotiate contracts for themselves. Black people were not considered people. We were property.
Right.
My ancestors were property. And it took it took years and decades for that to change in our country. And think about the number of generations that flourished of white men,
Right.
in contrast with women or people of color. Think about the numbers of generations that were able to own property and get educated and travel the world and meet new people and interact with different cultures. All of those things grow you as a human being. Think about the men in contrast with women, whoever were able to vote for their representatives.
Right. It wasn't that long
Think about
ago. It was not that long
not at
ago.
all,
Yeah.
not at all.
Right.
And it is impacting on the number of women who have run and won national office in the United States of America. It impacts on the number of people of color who have run and won national office. Those kinds of things are impediments. And I really do feel until we as a country deal with the fact that these are institutional impediments that need to be acknowledged. And then we need to figure out not just the conversation about it, but the action to right those wrongs.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm so excited about for you personally is your new opportunity where you intend to very publicly right those wrongs. And I have to say, Star, I'm right there with you. Every one of us have a role to play in fixing these things that stand in the way of women and people of color having equal opportunity in this country. So you are going to lead the way with your new business empire. Why don't you tell us about what you are up to now?
I'm so excited about this. Really gives me the opportunity to shine a light in a way that has never really happened. The world knows marquee who's who. These are the periodicals that tell you you mattered
Right.
in the United States of America. And now it's who's who across the world. For the first time, who's who has tapped a woman of color to be the CEO. Erica Lee is indeed the CEO of Who's Who, and the publisher and the CEO have selected me to be executive editor of the Marquee Makers List.
I
And
love it.
every month, the Makers List are going to present the list of those people who are impacting our world in a variety of ways. In February, the Makers List was in honor of Black History Month. So there were African Americans who are the quote catalysts of change. In March, because it's Women's History Month, the March lists are the luminaries of the women in our country. I am so looking forward to doing this every month and introducing a whole new crop of people. What makes me really excited about it, Nancy, is the manner in which we are doing the criteria for the first time, seated at the table of the selection committee, because that's what's important, are people of a variety of backgrounds. And diversity is not just about race or gender. It's about making sure the LGBTQ plus community is indeed invited to the table. It's about making sure veterans
Right.
are sitting at the table. It's about making sure that those who are differently abled or disabled are sitting at the table. Plus the races, blacks and Asians and Latin X people are sitting at the table. And of course, the largest diverse group, which is women and men. And we put those people at the table of influence, the table of decision. And I get to set the criteria. And that criteria is completely objective, based solely on the merit of who you are and what you've achieved.
We're so excited for you. And I know we will see a whole different type of list than we've ever seen before because I know your commitment to the broad scale diversity and inclusion. If we're honest, though, some days it's really hard to get up. You know, we all experience self doubt. Now, I wouldn't think by talking to you right here and knowing you as well as I do that you ever would experience self doubt, but you were really honest to talk about a time when you did. Does that ever happen to you now? And if so, what do you do about it? How do you handle it?
I give myself permission to feel down, but you get one day.
Yeah.
I don't give myself more than a day. You get a day to feel down, then it's time to get your butt up.
Yeah.
Because I then think about everything that has happened before me. I think about my ancestors. I think about my late mother and my late grandmother, who was actually arrested at the North Carolina lunch counter during the student protests of the civil rights era. I think about men and women who die in police custody. I think about all of the things that impact on women and people of color across our nation. And then I say to myself, whatever's going on with you
Right.
can't even come close. So
Absolutely.
the sun comes out every single day.
Yes, it does, ma'am.
Every single day. And I know it does.
What a great perspective to have. And I know we talked a little bit about other ways you take self care, like going to the spa, but I know you are very committed to your fitness regimen.
I know as national volunteer for AHA that stress and lack of sleep are very, very important as it relates to cardiovascular disease. And so I am working hard to put those things on the front burner for myself, the same way that I have done with fitness and with my eating regimen.
Yeah.
So that's my goal right now.
I love it. And that is a whole package of self-care. Good for you, man. You are the model. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, as a lawyer, you have negotiating skills unlike any that I have seen. But when is the last time you negotiated for yourself?
I have to think that, professionally, I negotiate on a regular basis whenever I'm creating new projects. And I like to encourage women to, step into their space for negotiations, not to be intimidated by what somebody else has done before, to know their own value. But, we as working moms, we negotiate with our kids all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you do this, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I have learned quite recently, that's something that you have to do. But also, in relationships, you negotiate and negotiate with my husband. Okay, honey, if you'll do take the laundry out of the dryer and fold it, then I'll make your lunch today.
Yes. That
Even though
sounds like my
between you and me,
household. That's the kind of
yeah,
deals we make in my house. Gary and I
even
make.
though
Yeah.
between the two of us, we would have made the lunch anyway,
Of
because we
course.
don't want them in our kitchen, and we'll just go
Exactly.
ahead and figure it out.
Exactly. Okay, so we had a fun little video of your entire life flashing in front of your eyes and mine.
This is your life.
I love it. That kicked us off. You know, and I don't think a lot of people know or remember, how did you go from being an attorney in New York City, dealing with homicides and other kinds of things, to getting on TV? Like, how did that happen? What happened?
It's so funny. I asked that question so often, even after all these years, and I always just say I traded in one jury for another. Um, I remember, I was a young prosecutor. I was in my late 20s, in like 1989, 1990. And I had been elevated to senior assistant district attorney by 1990. And so I didn't have as much of a caseload as some of the junior assistants, because I really was doing very, very serious cases or high profile cases. And we were in something called the trial cadre, which is where all the fancy schmancy prosecutors, we were like our own little law firm in there for whatever the high profile cases were. And one of my partners was this brilliant female attorney, Suzanne Mondo. And one day she got a phone call from her husband, our former colleague, Bruce. And Bruce called her to say that he had a new client. He was now in private practice, and his new client was an entity called Court TV, and they were going to launch in the next couple of weeks, and they wanted to bring on a prosecutor to do commentary. That's the way he described it. And she said, "What do you mean commentary?" He said, "Yeah, think about it like Madden, but for trials. They're just gonna you do a play by play." And
Right.
this is 1991, this conversation. He said, "You just got to do play by play. They'll have like a defense attorney, they'll have a, a, a law professor. So, Suzanne, will you do it?" So he's asking her, and I will remember forever Suzanne's response was, "I am not that vain. Ask Star."
And you didn't take any offense to that because
Very
that's a compliment.
clearly I was that vain. So
Yeah.
I we had those phones where we actually shared a phone in the center of two desks that were butted up against each other. And so she turned the phone around, and I, instead of finishing it on speaker, I don't know what made me do this, but I put it to my ear. I
Hmm.
saw it as an opportunity immediately.
Yeah.
So I said to him, "Okay, what do they need me to do?" They said, "Well, you'll come in, and you'll see the video of some part of a trial, and then you will give your opinion on it. And it'll just be you and a defense attorney and a law professor, and just the three of you all will
But
talk
yeah,
like a
please
panel." I
don't
said,
let her
"Okay, no
answer that
problem."
question.
And then
Yeah.
they said something that
Yeah.
really just sent me over the edge. He said, "And we'll send a car for you." I was like, "What?" Showed up at the studio, and when I walked in, I was floored because the defense attorney that I was going to be sitting with was F. Lee Bailey, and the law professor was Arthur Miller from Harvard. So I said, "Oh, they forgot to tell me that these are two of the most brilliant legal minds in our country." And instead, it's 1991. I was 29. And instead of getting too scared or too intimidated, I took my seat. And the Today Show producer, James Blue, he was actually a booker, saw me and took the tape to then Jeff Zucker. Jeff Zucker was the head of the Today Show, and said, This is somebody very different than we use as a legal commentator." And Jeff Zucker said, "Bring her on." And so in October 1991, I did my very first Today Show, and Katie Couric interviewed me, and Katie Couric introduced me by saying, "And joining us next is Star Jones from Brooklyn, reputed to be one of the best trial attorneys in all of New York." And my mother said I looked like I was about to burst out laughing. So, as you can see, that was a little bit different than the way, say, Arthur Miller might do commentary. And that my career took off from there. Within 6 weeks of my first appearance on the Today Show, they offered me the position of chief legal correspondent for NBC News.
And that was a moment to cheer for. And, although I didn't know you back then, I remember as clear as a day the reporting you did on the O.J. Simpson trial. Every night my mother and I lived in Michigan, so did she, but not close to each other. We would call each other every night to recap the trial. And she would always say, "Well, here's what Star Jones had to say." So there you go. Now, Star, I want to switch topics to something that I know is really important to you, and that is the incredible, wonderful family you have. And I have never seen you happier in all the years I've known you than on the day that you and Ricardo joined hands. And I will always remember how you beamed and how he beamed and the wonderful stepson that you have. And so love means everything, and at this point in your life, you have this incredible family. What has that done to you to change who you are or to enhance who you are, maybe is a better way to say it?
It really has enhanced me. I think women all over the world are always talking about this quote work life balance. And I don't believe in work life balance. I don't think you're ever going to balance. I was looking for work life integration, and I really and truly found it.
Yeah.
Um, Ricardo is just the kindest human being that I have
He
ever known.
is. He is
Really and
so awesome.
truly is. And I remember when we were first dating, and I would say to my mom, he's just so nice. He's so sweet to me. He's kind and gentle and generous. And at one point she said, "Stop it. You act like you don't deserve that. You deserve it all.
Yeah.
You deserve a man who's like that." And you know what? I do. Every
Absolutely.
woman does.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, he really is wonderful. And then he brought the most wonderful child to the marriage. I met Jake within the first month of Ricardo and I starting to date, and we fell in love with each other.
Oh.
We laugh about the fact that at 10 years old, he didn't even come up to my shoulder. And now my 15-year-old son is 6 feet 3
Oh, I love
and
it.
the most wonderfully handsome,
Oh.
debonair young man
Oof.
who is just equally kind as his father. They are the loves of my life. And the global pandemic, if it one thing it did, it really showed me that I made the right choice. Ricardo and I fell more in love during this
Oh,
time
I love hearing
because
that.
for 3 straight months we were with each other, and no one else. And Jake and Ricardo and I grew as a family during this time, and we played cards together and board games, and we just fell more and more and more in love with each other. And so we took this as an opportunity to just grow our family. And I think that that's something that has just been a tremendous blessing
Oh,
in my life. I just could not ask for anything more. I have known love now.
yeah.
I think of Tina Turner's song, "I Want to Know What Love Is."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, I know what it is.
And I love your wonderful family. So, speaking of Jake, if you had just one piece of advice that you could give him for his life, what would it be?
The advice that actually Oprah Winfrey gave to me: stand in the space that God had created for you.
Mm-mm-mm.
Um, don't be afraid to take your rightful place. This is your time. This is your space. Go for it, baby. Go for it.
And we've talked about your mother and grandmother, and maybe one of them are the individuals who's given you the best advice you've ever been given. I feel like today we have gotten to know each other a little bit better, although, again, you are
Yes.
one of my closest friends. I am so grateful to you for kicking off my new show. I thank you for everything, most of all for your love and your friendship. But I just want to ask you to end by saying if you had one word of wisdom for our viewers, what would it be?
Be the author of the only dictionary that defines you. That would be my advice. Actually, be the author and the editor because it will change. Um, your dictionary definition of yourself. Uh, you may think of yourself as that lawyer at 8 years old. Um, but as you grow as a human being, make sure there's room for other branches. I never knew that I wanted to be a wife and a mother the way I do. Those are beautiful new branches that have grown into my life. And so, although I am the author of that dictionary that defines me, I got to be the editor. I got to say, you know what? I'm going to make a little bit of an adjustment because it's going to enhance my life. Don't be afraid to adjust. Look at every opportunity as a new moment to grow. I believe in continuing learning all throughout my life. The moment I stop learning is the moment that I know that life is over for me. I want to learn something new every single day. And I want to wake up in the morning and know um, that I'm going to leave this earth better today than I found it yesterday.
Now, that is a good set of advice for all of us. Star Jones, thank you for this time together. I know that we went a little longer than we had intended, but I am so glad we did. I cannot wait till we are together face to face again. Thank you. Please give my love to Ricardo and Jake and
I will.
Mimi, and we will see
We
you
certainly
soon.
will. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Okay, bye, Star. want to thank Star Jones for her time, for her voice, and for her amazing perspectives. I learned so much from her, and I think for all of us, there's a lot to think about that we can turn into action. Star's light shines as she continues to choose to challenge the status quo as she pushes for equality on all fronts. Star, thank you for joining us for this important conversation. And I just have to say, the one thing that stood out most to me of many things that I learned from you today was when you were told by a guidance counselor at school not to rock the boat, and you went home and your mother said, "Girl, you turn that boat over." And knowing you as I do, I know that's how you live your life. I would love to hear from all of you about what impacted you. What stood out for you today from today's show? Let's hear from you about that. Thank you for joining me for Women's Month and the International Day of the Woman. This is only the beginning. Stay tuned to find out which remarkable person I will bring to you next.
On the next, At the Heart of It with Nancy Brown. Going viral for change. JT Laybourne shares his heart and life-changing journey. Plus, see how he used social media platform TikTok to raise more than $700,000 for the American Heart Association. Hear his heartfelt and emotional story. See how you can spread joy and maybe even go viral the JT way. His conversation with Nancy is one you don't want to miss. Next, At the Heart of It.